Hello, this is Vinyl Keith coming at you with another video today. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite bands from when I was a teenager, okay? Def Leppard, okay? Today is the 45th anniversary of the release of High and Dry, their second album. Killer record, okay? Killer record. Now, instead of just talking about this album, I decided just to talk about Def Leppard in general and cover all the albums I have of them. Disclosure, I've only got the first 4 because after that, I don't like what they did. Okay? I really don't like after the first 3. They got this producer, Mutt Lange, who each album, starting with High and Dry, he kept getting more slick with the production and making them do more poppy rock songs, okay? They started out almost like a heavy metal band. In fact, they were. They were formed in 1977, Sheffield, England, okay? Let's see. They were formed by lead singer Joe Elliott, on bass Rick Savage, Steve Clark on guitar, Pete Willis on guitar, and Tony Kenning on drums for the first year, okay? Rick Allen replaced Tony Kenning on drums in 1978, the next year. And he's the youngest member of the band. At the time of the band forming, he was 15 years old. 15. I think the oldest was Joe at 18 at that time, okay? So they were formed in 77, okay, playing clubs and all that. I guess they got signed in like late 79 by Mercury Records, I guess, because that's what they were on, with Polygram. And then they released their first album, On Through the Night, March 14th, 1980. Okay, so this band's been around a long time. They haven't broke up or anything. They changed members a few times. But this band's been going on now for, 46 years recording. Okay, March 14th, 1980, On Through the Night. Great album, okay? You know, they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal that, you know, all these bands over in England or in the UK kind of rose up. You know, bands like, Motorhead kind of started it, Motorhead and Judas Priest, okay? Maybe UFO, they could be considered one, but they're not usually included. What I'm talking about is Motorhead, maybe Priest, okay? But it was Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, Tigers of Pantang, Tank. I mean, there's probably like 100 bands or more. Angel Witch, Demon. All these bands are fantastic at that time. And they all just kind of rose up at the same time, gained notoriety, and all these bands became famous all at once, okay? Now, getting back to Def Leppard, On Through the Night eventually went platinum, okay? At the time, it was number 51 on the U.S. Billboard chart. And, you know, they still every once in a while play a few of these songs. My favorite song off of this first album is probably Wasted. I also like Rock Brigade, Hello America, It Could Be You, Rocks Off, Answer to the Master. Fantastic record. Man, this is killer. Like classic heavy metal is what this is. Classic heavy metal. Look at that back shot of these kids. They were young. They were all teenagers, okay? Like I said, Joe was probably 18 or 19 when this album was released. I know he's the oldest. But look at that shot, man. Isn't that cool? Just a bunch of kids. Made it big. On Through the Night. That was their first album. Next, in 1981, on today, July 6th in 1981, High and Dry was released, their second album. Now this is when I discovered them. But I didn't discover them right away, okay? Let's see. Because I can't remember exactly when my parents got cable TV. It was in late 81, I think, or early 82. I believe late 81, maybe late in the summer of 81, maybe the fall. They played 3 videos on MTV from this album. I started seeing them. I think the first one was Let It Go. They also did a video for High and Dry, Saturday Night, the title track. And Bringing on the Heartbreak was that was kind of the big hit off this album, or the hit. But there are so many great deep tracks on here, besides those 3 singles. Another Hit and Run, fantastic. Lady Strange. The title track, On Through the Night. Mirror, Mirror. Fantastic record. Okay. What did I say? This hit number, I can't read my writing, 38 on the U.S. Billboard chart. 38. And it sold 2 million copies last time it was certified. Okay. High and Dry. This is the album that kind of broke them a little bit. That was in 81. Now, Steve Clark and Pete Willis got a quick reputation, both the guitar players at the time for the band. They had a reputation for drinking a lot. A lot. And I think it kind of got overboard with Pete Willis, okay? In January 20th of 1983, they released Pyromania, okay? This was the album that really broke them. I think there was 5 singles off this thing, including Photograph, which is the song that really got me. That was the one that made me fall in love with Def Leppard. But getting back to Pete Willis, when they were recording this album, they fired him. They kicked him out of the band after he laid down the rhythm guitar tracks. Because they kept the rhythm guitar tracks on here. That's Pete Willis. Okay? So he is on this album. But they fired him before it was released. And they replaced him with Phil Collen. Okay? Phil Collen used to be in a band called Girl. Okay? And Phil Collen is right there. This is the only album I have from Girl. It was released in 1980. And they were an English band too. And they're famous also for having, what's his name? Philip Lewis, the lead singer of L.A. Guns, which is right there. So a couple of famous dudes in this band. Okay? Getting back to Def Leppard. This was released January 20th of 1980. Okay, so Pete Willis is out of the band. They replace him with Phil Collen. They go on tour. Okay, I think Phil Collen actually helped finish the album, though. Even though Pete Willis's rhythm guitar tracks are on here, I think he laid some things down too, along with Steve Clark, who was the other guitarist in the band. So it was released January 20th, 1983. It was blocked by going #1 by Michael Jackson's Thriller. I mean, it would have hit #1 otherwise. But Thriller was all the rage and would not budge. And this went to #2. But it sold 10 million copies. Pyromania did. It went diamond. This thing was a huge hit. Photograph was all over MTV. So was, let's see, Rock of Ages and Foolin'. Foolin' was on the radio in late 1983. Like, I guess that was like one of the third or fourth single from the album. And it was being played on the radio a lot. And that song was on the radio at the time. I had my first car wreck as a teenager. And I was 18 years old. Just demolished my dad's Monte Carlo. Oh my God, that was terrible. But if Foolin' was playing when that happened, okay? I just thought I had to throw that in there. Old memories. But man, this is a killer album. This is my favorite album from Def Leppard, okay? Went diamond, 10 million copies. It's top to bottom, it just rocks. You know, you've heard Rock, Rock Till You Drop, Photograph, Too Late for Love, Rock of Ages, Foolin', Coming Under Fire. Man, this album smokes. Fantastic stuff. With slicked up production from Robert Mutt Lang, who also produced High and Dry. I forgot to mention that. But he really did a great production job on this. He's kind of famous for being a producer who gives these slick productions to these big albums, okay? Pyromania. Then, tragedy strikes the band. On December 31st, 1983, on New Year's Eve, Rick Allen the drummer, was driving his Corvette with his girlfriend. And I don't know, I can't remember if he was drinking or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember. But he wrecked the Vet. And the seatbelt, of all things, cut off his left arm at the shoulder. What's the drummer going to do now? Well, you know, I give this band a lot of credit for sticking with him, okay? That poor guy he built his own, you know, they couldn't save his arm, okay? He was in the hospital for months. He built and learned to play a new set of drums that he built himself. Learned to play them one-handed, and he would use, there was some kind of thing, some contraption on there, on his drums he built, that allowed him to play whatever he played with his left arm with one of his feet. Okay? So he would just, you know, hit with the one hand he still had, and he'd be playing his left hand stuff with one of his feet. Okay? I think that was ingenious. And, you know, he had to relearn how to play the drums. Really, because that's, you know, a little bit different. And I credit the band for sticking with the guy. I think it shows a lot of character, and that's why I still love the band, even though the stuff they put out in the last 30 years, horrible. You know, Joe Elliott's been known to be a big fan of bands like, you know, British bands like T-Rex and Mott the Hoople, bands like that, and where they did some pop rock stuff, British style. And I think that he steered Def Leppard in that direction over the years. And I just don't like what they've had a few singles that were good, but overall, I have not bought any of their albums since Hysteria. You know, everybody knows what this is. Yeah, this came out in 1987. Sold 12 million copies. It was released on August 3rd, 1987. 12 million copies. Okay? So when Rick Allen relearned to play the drums, you know, they did like an opening show in England, which I've seen on YouTube years ago. And they introduced him as the Thunder God. That's kind of like a big thing now. That's what his nickname is, Thunder God. And that was his first show back. And, you know, they did well. So, you know, they went on tour with Hysteria. So the rest is history. They've been a big selling act ever since, you know. But yeah, that's my story about Def Leppard. They were good for, you know, I'll include Hysteria, because I like some of the songs on here, but the production on this is like even more slicked up than Pyromania. I mean, wow. But they had 7 singles off this son of a bitch. 7. And they had their first #1 song with Love Bites off this album. But this is where Pour Some Sugar on Me came from. Animal, Woman, Rocket. I'm not big on Rocket. That's a weird song. The song Hysteria. Yeah. They were a good band for, you know, the first 7 years, 7, 8 years. As far as I'm concerned. After that, they kind of went downhill. They just started doing stuff that I just don't like. They went too poppy. They went from a heavy metal band to kind of a pop, sometimes rock band. I'm not feeling that, you know. So I just stick with these first 4 albums, and I love them. And I also have, on Record Store Day a couple years ago, to me this is a big deal. They released a live album. I remember this was 4,000 copies, okay? But this is a live album from April 26, 1980. It was right after, you know, the first album was recorded and released. Okay, it's called When the Walls Come Tumbling Down. That's one of their songs. And it was recorded at the New Theatre in Oxford, I guess that's England, 26th of April, 1980. This is cool. This was only, like I said, 4,000 copies on Record Store Day, whenever this was. I can't remember what year it was released. Let's see. 2021. There's the gatefold. Look how young they look. You can tell. They're just kids here. And they were touring with AC/DC. Okay? Opening up for AC/DC on the For Those About to Rock tour in 1981. I remember hearing that. There's the back. This is, if you could ever find this album, I don't know if it was ever released on CD, okay? I just know about this version, and I picked it up that Record Store Day. This thing smokes. Fantastic. Listen to this track list. When the Walls Come Tumbling Down, It Could Be You, Rock Brigade, Satellite, Medicine Man, Answer to the Master, When the Rain Falls, Sorrow is a Woman, Good Morning Freedom. That was a B-side for Hello America, and I think Hello America was their very first single. It Don't Matter, Overture, Lady Strange, Get Your Rocks Off, which was shortened to Rocks Off, really, on the studio album. Hello America, Wasted, and Ride Into the Sun. And that was a B-side off something, but I can't remember what. But yeah, great album right here. If you can ever find this, pick it up if you like early Def Leppard. Fantastic stuff. That's all I got for you now. But like I said, today's the anniversary of the release of High and Dry. 45 years ago today. And their first real big hit was on this album, Bringing on the Heartbreak. Everybody knows that album, or that song. But there you go. 45 years of High and Dry. All right. Hopefully everybody had a great 4th of July. And I will see you next time.